Hello, and thanks for joining us again for our Irish Angle weekly discussion show about all things horse racing in association with William Hill and their Each Way Extra series. I've got a slightly different lineup this week, myself presenting, and we've got Johnny Ward and Paddy Flood with us. Emma Nagel is at the sales in Goffs and she couldn't make it today. Paddy, Johnny, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vinny.
Thanks, Vin.
Now, first thing I'll just say is it's Safer Gambling Week. So I just thought I'd mention this. Just if you go onto our website, if you have any issues about your gambling, go onto the website. You'll find all sorts of tools and different things to help you through that. Now, I know most people say, oh, to load a toss and this, that, and the other, and nobody really cares. But I'll go back to something from years ago. I remember when I was only a kid, I started working for JP McManus, and I remember him telling me that he took up golf because he was losing money midweek going into the bookies and getting carried away back in horses. So he took up golf. So if JP has to do something for safer gambling, so do the rest of us. That's my way of looking at it. Anyway, Paddy, Johnny, let's get stuck into some of this week's stuff. One of them is the identification mix-up in Punchestown. I wrote a blog about this today. It's a mess, is the bottom line. It shouldn't happen, in my opinion. What did you make of this, Paddy? With two horses, both owned by JP, as it turned out, trained by Enda Bulger. They brought the two of them to the races, and they saddled the wrong one for the wrong race starting off. A horse due to run the maiden hurdle runs in a novice chase. And the other one never got to run because they found it out in time that the other one was saddled wrong to run in the maiden hurdle. That should have run in the chase. So they took him out and they referred the matter on. But it's a bit of a mess, isn't it, Paddy?
It is messy, Vin. First of all, I'd say well done, Mark Walsh, getting one around. A horse with no experience and gave it a great ride, and it made a mistake at the last and all that. But it's a strange one, Vin. It's happening. It happened, as you said in your blog, in Galway to Jesse Harrington, and I worked for the IHRB at Point of Points, and I mean, geez, they're so hard about scanning a horse twice. So that's with horse boxes parked everywhere out in the middle of a field. It's a really, really hard job to get all them horses before they go a race and then stand at the parade ring and get them all again. So you've 4-year-olds there, they're fresh, they're hard work. There's a lot going on. But if you don't do it, you get in a lot of trouble. So I can't see how hard it can be at a racetrack to do it. It's a lot more structured environment. It's a lot more professional at a racetrack. There's only one way into the parade ring, one way out. And I don't know, I'd say the guys who missed it are going to get in a lot of trouble. You can't blame the person tacking up the horse, okay? They're under a lot of pressure. There might only have been one person there with two horses, absolutely flat out all morning to get to the races. Then, they've nearly a day's work before they get racing. And then if they manage two horses, maybe plait them, brush them, take care of them. They've a lot going on, and they have to run up and get the saddle, come back down. So something can happen, but there needs to be a structure in place to, protect them. That if they do saddle the wrong one, it's caught straight away. Now, I think if any of them would have won, you would have figured it out, because a winner will head back to the vet's box after it wins, and it'll be singled out for a urine sample or a blood sample, and the chip will be checked again. So you'd find out pretty quick. But with all the money we have and the resources we have and good people we have, how is it happening?
Well, the first thing is the IHRB tell me that they don't always have the resources to do this. That I presume it's a money issue overall, and how they delegate all their different monies in different places and everything else. So they don't always have enough staff to be able to do this on a given day. It turns out Punchestown was a given day where they were going to do it. So they do the scan when the horses come into the saddling area first off into the stables. They're all scanned on entry. So those two horses would have been scanned and were there. They were the correct horses going in. But the problem is when they came out saddled up going into the parade ring, they didn't scan the first one, and there was an issue on the day. They had some issues with a separate thing, was scanning or being able to identify horses that were newcomers, because they have to check all their markings from Weatherby's, and that system broke down, so they had to do that manually, as far as I know. So that was the reason that it didn't happen till the fifth race that they were.
I don't really accept that, really, Vin. That you need two people to go and look at a horse's markings. Joan Taylor is a qualified vet for a long, long time, and I know the app wasn't working, but she's been doing that all her life without an app. like, what's the point in scanning the horses when they get to the races? Why not just dedicate someone to do it once as they're coming into the ring? If it's the wrong horse, then it's the wrong horse, you know. So it would take the mix up of, okay, them two horses are there, but if you're scanning them coming into the ring, we'll just say, listen, that's the wrong horse. Go back and saddle the other one. You might still have time.
Perhaps so. I presume the idea of scanning them coming into the stable yard in the first place is to make sure that they are the proper horse, because you don't want something coming in. I don't know the issues, but around medical things, if there was a disease in the country, you wouldn't want a particular horse coming in there infecting other ones or whatever else. They have to be proved to be in train, have all their vaccinations in order, and so on. I'm presuming, but I don't know. But yeah, the important one is when they're going into the race to be saddled up and a jockey put on them going down to the start, you really need to know that they're the right horses. What about this, Johnny? It shouldn't happen, should it? And it's happened the second time in 4 years we know of. And then there must be occasions when, as Paddy was saying, if a horse wins, we will know anyway, because the chip is scanned a second time anyway, or a third time, as the case may be. But if neither of these horses had have won on the day and there was no second scan done, we'd never have known. Those two Enda Bulger horses go home, and we don't know. Enda might find out afterwards. He has a look at it himself on the rerun on the TV, and he says, "Geez, that's not that horse. That's the wrong one we ran there." But he doesn't have to tell.
Jumping well though.
Yeah, but like, isn't it? You know, it is that situation, isn't it? That these must be slipping through the net on other days. It's like we see it's happened twice in 4 years we know of. I have heard myself that there's been some incidents at a point recently where some geldings ran in a fillies race or something like that, or whatever. There was some issues around that too. But it's obviously, it happens. We know it happens. It just shouldn't happen, is the bottom line. So what do you reckon is the solution here, Johnny?
I don't think I don't think there's ever going to be any malice in an incident like this, where, you know, the chance of this happening is still obviously very, very remote. It really shouldn't happen at all. But I think in our modern worries about integrity and potential skullduggery in the game, and the dark black markets, and the fact that it's hard to know where any money is going anymore, I don't think this is necessarily going to be an issue like that going forward, because it's sporadic. But like, I can think of 3 instances now where these were dramatic situations of horses running in wrong races. As you mentioned in the blog, Vinny, Jessica Harrington running a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old race and winning. And we had the situation yesterday where you have a hurdler going into a chase, getting that mixed up with the situation last year where the bookies paid out on a horse who was the winner alright was basically was, I think, arrived too late, and the horse that won the race was the wrong horse in the race. So you have 3 examples in recent times of this happening, and that really should be too much, because this is just a monumental mistake, really. And I can completely understand that the IHRB might be stretched resources wise. There is so much racing, so many double days and all of that maybe the resources are stretched. But I think you touch on the real worry of this. Like, this could easily have just happened, and it was like the tree falling in the forest. It never happened because nobody was around to hear it. We might never have known this happened. Nobody might even have known effectively that it happened. And that is a worry for me, because you want to be backing, at least we might back the wrong horse in a race, but we want to actually back the right animal anyway. I think we are.
Yeah, but the other thing here is, look, we know, you see it with punters, with trainers, with everybody in the industry, jockeys included, and the whole lot. Everyone's looking for a little bit of an edge, and whatever that might be. A jockey goes up the inside because he thinks it's better ground, or whatever that may be, or a trainer running horses in certain races think they have a bit of a chance here, and so on. If you take it this way, that the vast majority of horses in the country are handicappers, right? And they have to have 3 runs to get handicapped. So say you're a trainer and you've got 2 horses. One is a 5 furlong horse, through and through, and the other one's a 1.5 mile horse, through and through. So you go and you run the 5 furlong one. You declared the 2 to run tomorrow, and you run the 5 furlong one in a 1.5 mile race, and you run the 1.5 mile one in the 5 furlong race, even though they're declared to run. They get handicapped over their distance that they're supposed to be in, but the different horse runs in each. If that happens 3 times, you've got 2 very well handicapped horses, haven't you? But look, I'm sure it's not happening deliberately, but you could see how it could be a thing if we weren't going to check these horses a second time. It is a worry. Anyway, we'll move on to bigger and better things. Another thing I see, it's only breaking there this morning, about the Racing League in the UK, which has been going on for a number of years now, in all sorts of different guises, but all sorts of different people promoting it, presenting it on the day and everything else. It's never really worked. And now it looks like it might be replaced, or is going to be replaced, with a new winter series, which is in conjunction with a company called Invades, which has been bringing students to the races for the last few years. They do a big do when they bring them hundreds and hundreds of young people going to the races. So it's aimed at 18 to 25-year-olds. It's going to be 5 races with, I think, 200,000 minimum prize money on a night, and it'll be shown on ITV on Friday night. So this is a bit of a change here. Paddy, what do you make of that? Were you a fan of the racing league in the first place?
No, not from day one. Didn't like it. Never liked it. And as you said, they got every Tom, Dick and Harry to try and promote it, and it just didn't work. And I think a lot of people knew from the start it wasn't working. Nothing changed. So look, it's eventually gone. Look, Friday night is prime night, So listen, give it a run, see what happens. The prize money is a lot of money, 200 grand on a night, that should draw a lot of good trainers into it, or better horses. But just the racing league thing, Irish teams, there's lads there people wouldn't have heard of, and it just wasn't. It's not a soccer competition, horse racing. It should be able to stand on its own, and creating a league like that was a bit. It didn't do anything for me, or didn't do anything for the sport. So listen, fair play to them. They're going to change and try something else, and hopefully it works.
Yeah, it has a chance of working, Johnny, does it? Well, certainly big money, decent racing on a Friday night live on TV sounds like a good thing to me anyway.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not a massive fan of the racing league concept either. I think it generally doesn't work, and it sort of feels contrived. And once it feels contrived, it's hard for it to ever set in your head as anything other than something that's a bit of a fad. And I wouldn't knock them for trying it. I think British racing, as much as it's riddled by insecurity at times, they do try things. The likes of the ITV to attract people to watch racing on a Friday night. It's not that straightforward even to attract people to watch TV now, particularly if that age bracket, 18 to 25-year-olds are glued to their phone. So it's not easy for racing to sell itself. It's not easy for racing to sell itself to RTE or to a lot of terrestrial channels. Like, we're not exempt from that here. We have a subscription channel in racing TV, but like RTE's viewing figures wouldn't be massive either. So like racing isn't the easiest sell at the moment, and I'm just never a fan of the racing league concept. It wouldn't do it for me. But I still think racing has an awful lot going for it in terms of selling itself, but probably more so through social media and maybe some really good documentaries on TV to showcase the sport. Because like it is, we still have an incredible sport here. Like, even look at Final Demand jumping yesterday, and you look at good horse in action. It's incredible to watch. Ethical Diamond. Like, we can really sell amazing moments like we saw on the football yesterday. But I'm not sure TV is going to terrestrial TV. It is a struggle for me.
Yeah, we talk about these magic moments and everything else. Here's another thing. We'll switch on to a separate topic. Is Harry Skelton doing his aeroplane thing as he comes up to the line, winning the other day on the Paddy Power Chase? What about this, Paddy? First of all, he's doing it before the line. That for me is a little bit of a worry. Certainly if I'd won backed. And the other thing is, just if you own or train one of these horses, Jesus, you have to worry, don't you? Your horse with the jockey with no hands on the reins, maybe only for a split second, but it's showboating to a large degree. But is it something you ever did, or is it something you condone?
No, I remember I lifted up my hand with my finger to signal the crowd after winning the Irish National, and Mouse nearly sacked me after it. He said, don't, whatever horses, you can do whatever you like, and other horses, do not celebrate before the line of my horses. So that was kind of bet into me, really. We probably done it as kids, riding ponies and stuff, okay. Look, when he'd done it, I went, oh, will you get down, you clown, really? In my head, that's, it's not March, it's not Cheltenham in March, it's Paddy Power Chase. They're a very ordinary one at that, and gave it a grand ride, and they had a great weekend and whatever. But listen, I was kind of looking online, a lot of non-racy people enjoyed it, so it's like, I suppose, celebrating a goal. If you don't like the goal scorer, you're not going to like the celebration. So, me being in the industry, I don't really care. I just thought it looked a bit stupid from me. But if other people are enjoying it, look, he's at the line. I don't think there's any fear of him coming off doing it. I think he knows exactly. Well, I suppose if he does one day, he'll never do it again. But Australian racing, like, he would have been fined probably 10% of his winning right there for that. So if you stop riding any bit before the line in Australia, it's a massive fine. Yeah.
I tell you, Vinny, the only horse that I ever named was called Dancer from the Dance, which is a line from a Yeats poem. And Dancer from the Dance fits into 18 characters, which is the maximum. Just about, you couldn't get one more letter in. And the line from the Yeats poem is about separating the artist from the art. And sometimes I'm thinking of that as the jockey from the horse. Like, they are the same piece of art when it's Paul Carberry and something magic happens. No, the horse turned out to be absolutely useless, right? So it didn't get any airtime. But basically, I love thinking of jockeys doing mad things, like Paul Carberry winning on Loyal Focus one day for Dermot Weld in Ferryhouse. I can't find the video anywhere, where he basically won on the bridle by a short head, and you weren't even sure he'd won because Dermot Weld told him to leave it late.
He beat me, Johnny.
Were you riding for Michael O'Brien?
No, Desi Hughes. I'm sure I rode a big Supreme Leader horse. He just... Oh, no. Yeah, sorry. I remember the day
it was the Michael O'Brien trade horse. I remember he reversed form with him subsequently.
Garrity, I think, rode it, yeah.
I'm going to get whoever rode the run up. I'm going to get the trumpet out here because I've done like a 20 quid treble, and Bewley's Berry was one of the horses. I can't remember the other, but Loyal Focus was one of the legs anyway, and he was well backed. And I was watching on a Saturday, of course, at work, which we're told is a big, massive concern now if anyone has a bet while at work. So I'm watching it, and I was like, has Paul Carberry really done that? And like, I love when jockeys, like I love Jamie Spencer on Sariska, like I love, Carberry again at Leopardstown, beef or salmon. I love that stuff, and this stuff we're talking about it only brings a smile to my face, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd be looking forward now to Harry Skelton at Cheltenham in March, coming over the last in the Gold Cup with his 2 arms out. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Can't see Paul Townend doing it now myself, but anyway. Right, what else have we got to look at? Tipperary, they got the all clear, or horse race in Ireland have, from government about the final approval they've got now for this all-weather track. I hadn't realised, but I suppose I hadn't looked into it enough. But I'm told that the all-weather track is going to be mostly, or at least partly, outside the actual original grass track down in Tipperary. So I think they're taking away the parade ring and the betting ring that would currently be there. That'll be all-weather track when it's all done. So they've got to rebuild stands and everything, which seems like a lot of work. No wonder it's going to take a long time. What about that, Paddy? We talked about it in a previous show. I don't know whether you were on the show that day when we talked about it, but would you be a fan of that? Can you see the benefit of it down that end of the country?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. It's probably an underused track, Tipperary, for a good track, good flat track, and a nice jumping track as well. But I think it's going to put jobs into the area. It's going to probably take the mundaneness of Dundalk, out of the equation. It's something new. All positives my end. I wouldn't see a negative in it. I suppose it's going to cost a lot of money, but I'm sure it's an investment that they've kind of calculated that will pay back eventually.
Yeah, and just on that, Johnny, could you see in 10, 15 years' time, could you see us having some sort of a Breeders' Cup type meeting down there on the turf and on the all-weather?
Maybe, the one thing about all-weather racing with the climate the way it's going, and the mad weather that Britain has gotten this year in terms of drought, and now an awful lot of rain over the last few days. Like, at least with an all-weather surface, you can rely on it. I've stated before, I've misgivings around another all-weather track in Ireland. It almost implies that there are enough people in the industry who are not entirely satisfied with Dundalk. Whether that's, maybe that's fair for some people, that's to be debated for another day. And Dundalk has been a massive addition, but it does feel like this would be more suitable for some of the bigger players to have an all-weather track there. I've reservations about racing having a larger and larger share of meetings with nobody there, where it's entirely essentially an industry /TV /betting / getting horses to run product, where there's actually no life and soul to the meeting because there's no one there. And I'm not sure that location is ideal for all-weather racing. Whether they go to it in Dublin or not, I don't know. But I've reservations around too much racing taking place with nobody there, because I think we undervalue the sport sometimes in terms of the atmosphere and that. And when you have so many of these meetings, and we've an awful lot of racing now, I'm not sure. And one other thing that needs to be pointed out, if Dalymount Park is anything to go by, and the Children's Hospital and everything else, like, cost overruns are inevitable in projects like this, and the Curragh was lucky to get done when it did. And so I don't know how much this is going to cost in the end, but I don't know. I'd have mixed views on it.
Yeah, the other thing, of course, here is that Tipperary is a horse race in Ireland track. So horse race in Ireland are going to fund it. They're going to do that by borrowing money to do it. So the industry is going to have a debt hanging over it for whatever 20, 30, 40 years, whatever length they're going to get a mortgage on this for. Whereas at least if you look at Dundalk, that was built by private development, so it was a private enterprise. So if it flopped, never got off the ground, or whatever happened, or you had 2 years of foot and mouth, or COVID, or God knows what, that was the problem for the people who developed Dundalk, not the industry as a whole. Whereas in this one, if something does go wrong, the industry itself is going to be paying for this forever, is the issue, isn't it? Anyway, we'll go on to other stuff. Let's get on to the horse racing things now. With some cracking racing over the weekend. And then, of course, we also found out last week, Stateman, one of the leading fancies for the champion hurdle, would have won the champion hurdle in March if he'd have stood up at the last. He's got a tendon injury. He's out for the season. He's 8 at the moment, rising 9. So by the time he comes back, he's going to be heading as a 10-year-old, more or less. What do you make of that, Paddy? It's really bad news for a lot of people, like a real blow for the Willie Mullins yard and everyone connected with the horse, because he's a cracking horse. But even for the fans of the sport, we wanted to see Stateman back again, didn't we?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think this is a massive loss, because he's been that one horse that's always turned up. He'd won Bad Road in Leopardstown last year, put that to bed. But every race meeting we go to, any big race meeting, Stateman is there, and he's the pillar of the meeting, really. So to lose him, at a tendon at 8-year-old, he's not going to improve from as an 8-year-old. It's probably his last throw of the dice this year to win another champion. So for him to come back, I can't see them going to jump a fence or anything like that with him going on as a 9-year-old. So, and you're hoping the tendon heals properly. Otherwise, we might never see him again. It depends how much of a tear or how much damage he's done. Like you see, Energumene never really came back to the horse he was after his. So, I mean, yeah, it's a massive, massive blow. Even though Willie has a stable full of stars, he was his banker everywhere he went, whether it was Dublin or, Punchestown and start of the year. He was banged there, and he was a great horse for prize money as well. There's a lot of money won, and I'd say even Paul Townend now will be feeling it, because they'll start to have to think now about Lossiemount going for a champion, which I didn't believe they actually were ever thinking about it. But I'd say plans might be up in the air a bit now. He is a massive miss for everyone, for us as well, because he's a great horse to watch. He does nothing flashy, but he's a solid old, like an iron horse.
Yeah. And of course, the other one they do have is Anzadam, which Johnny mentioned on our season preview. You were fancying that, Johnny, for the champion, and all of a sudden the prices halved, or even more so, and Lossiemount gone favoured, I think. So it's been all change in that market. What do you make of that, Johnny? Are you still keen on Anzadam now?
Yeah, totally. Like, it was, I mean, if you happen to back him before the news, he was available at a nice price. Like, Stateman has been honestly one of the most incredibly reliable horses in training. Like, even when he might be beaten by Constitution Hill, but he was incredibly durable. Like, just came to the top table. I'd say Paul Townend would say one of the most straightforward horses to ride you'd ever possibly get. He just did everything so well, willing, settled, jumped, travelled in his races, wanted to win, all of that stuff. And like, when you get an injury like this, you definitely fear for his future. One horse I thought was interesting yesterday was Alexei, by a sire I'd never heard of before. He's an interesting pedigree. His performance in the Greatwood, off his mark, the way he travelled in the race, the way he went up the hill on the drying ground that suited him. He comes into it, I think he's around about 33, 41. You might get that many runners the champion hurdle. Like, Willie's still have like very, very strong options on the day without Stateman. But if he doesn't come back to what he was, Stateman, he wasn't an absolute outright superstar in terms of ability, or isn't an outright superstar, but he's been an incredible racehorse.
Yeah. Other news during the week is Brighter Days Ahead, due to go over fences for Gordon Elliott. Has had a slight setback, only a minor thing as far as I know, a little bit tight after schooling, so he's going to give the horse a couple more weeks, give her another couple of weeks before he sends her over fences. You wouldn't worry about that, Paddy, would you?
No, I don't think so, Vin. These things happen. If the footballer and he trains hard one day and he feels a little bit, you don't play him, that sort of way. And I think Gordon, this is a really good mare. He's not going to take any chance with her. He's going to bring her, make sure she's 100% going to the racetrack. So I wouldn't be too worried. I think if there was a big issue, they'd come out and say it. Don't think there's any need to hide it with a good horse, So hopefully we get to see her, because I was looking forward to her running today. But Yeah, no, I'd be happy enough that she'd be back in a few weeks.
Yeah, and the other one then is Marine Nationale. Nothing wrong with the horse, but just Barry Connell decided not to run today on the rescheduled meeting in Navan. He was saying, which seems to make a lot of sense actually. He was talking, but the meeting was supposed to be originally on Saturday, where he felt that Marine Nationale would get the freshest ground. The ground was due to be soft. It turned out they got a huge amount of rain, so the meeting got cancelled. It was waterlogged, and then of course they ran the whole Troytown meeting on Sunday. So he felt he was going to be running on chopped up ground if he ran Marine Nationale. So he's going to wait another couple of weeks there as well.
You'd have to agree with him. You'd have to agree with him, Vin.
Yeah,
that was
totally.
it's a big change in that ground, and as I said, Barry hasn't got 100 horses there, so he doesn't have to run them, whereas Willie's trying to keep them all apart, and they have to get races in.
Yeah, and just looking back, other stuff from last week. The Cheltenham meeting was the big one, I suppose. Tom Cooper winning 2 bumpers, I thought was exceptional for a yard that probably only has the 2 or 3 horses. Like, very few horses did these years, Tom Cooper, but he does extremely well with them, particularly those bumper horses. And then, of course, we talked already about the Skelton. They had a fantastic weekend. The other one was Loaded, the Sioux, which beat John Bond 15 lengths. What did you make of that, Johnny? John Bond, not quite the same horse at Cheltenham, is he?
No, I wasn't surprised with that result, to be honest. Like, John Bond just isn't the same at Cheltenham. A very, very testing ground. He's had a lot of hard races. This is a tough start for the season. Like, when you put in Marine Nationale, there's no way he should be running on the ground. Like, I was even thinking, should he even be running on Saturday as a start of the year? John Bond might handle it better, but like, it was a very good performance by the winner, who just looked really, really happy throughout the race. I thought it was cracking racing, to be honest. At Cheltenham, obviously Panic Attack, July Flower, very good. Be Aware jumped brilliantly in that novices chase. He mightn't be top level, but his jumping was so good on the day. One Horse Town as well for Harry Durham in the first race. I thought he put in a very good performance. And even like Saturday's racing as well, it was running in desperate conditions. It was just good racing at Cheltenham, and I suppose we get to our meeting in Navan as well. I thought was really, really excellent stuff from Navan, and just, I suppose, unfortunate for them. We've seen Nace and their big day and been hit by bad weather lately. Like, I was worried Navan was going to lose both meetings, but I thought it was cracking action there.
Yeah, thought it was a good decision they made very quickly as well when Navan was cancelled on Saturday to move that meeting to today, which was a really good idea, I think, because those horses that were planning to run there, including Kopek de Board, who's due to run later on today, I think, while we're recording this, that they're the sort of horses you want their preparation to be right, and if they can run on the day and do their performance now, it fits in perfectly for the rest of the season. Some other stuff from just Navan alone was Calypso Chance, the horse that started favourite for the bumper last year in Cheltenham and disappointed, and then flopped up and down Royal a few weeks ago over 2 miles. Gordon stepped the horse up to 2.5 yesterday and wins. Completely different performance in the space of a few weeks. He puts it mainly down to the distance of the race, I think, more than anything else. And then, of course, Terence O'Brien winning the Troytown with Answer to K for horse that's a real mudlark. And then the other one you'd mentioned earlier, Paddy, Final Demand. What did you make of those performances?
I thought it was great result for Terence and Johnny Shinnick there winning the Troytown. 2 really good fellas, shrewd men. I wrote a few winners for Terence, and he was one of them trainers that you just got confidence going out in his horses. I don't know what it was, you just knew they were really well schooled. They travel really well, Terence's horses, and anytime he said, I think you'll go close today, he was always right. So he gives jockeys great confidence, and he does a great job with a small team. I thought Final Demand was probably the best I've seen a horse jump for a lot of years for the first time. I mean, Paul Townend could probably go and give his riding feedback. He literally had to do nothing on him, and that's a jockey's dream, and a trainer and owner's dream for a horse to do that just first time out. All you want them to do is get around, but to see him jump, he was exceptional. He's Paul never had to say go or slow or wait. He done all the work for him, and he's 2 years just looks one of them old school chasers, doesn't he? Now, look, the race yesterday was a nothing race. He's going to have bigger tasks ahead, but geez, that's going to stand to him. The fun he had going around Navan, because there's a good big fence in Navan, a proper winter track, soft ground, but he's going to come out the next day, that horse, and think he's invincible. Think this is really easy. So, look, he looks great. I thought Calypso's Chance was very good. He was a horse I really liked in the bumpers, but looking at him now, he's just a touch slow as a bumper horse, I'd say. He won the bumper in Navan last year. Patrick Mullins won on him, but he's probably more of a stayers type. 2.5 yesterday, but I'd say stepping up even further will be more of his goal. Jumped well. Jack was very good on him. To break your maiden in a graded race is always very hard to do, and geez, he done it well. He got down and he galloped to the line, and I'd say he's going to improve too. So we're starting to get our teeth into the really good ones now, and it's exciting, And like you said, fair play to Navan for sticking it on today. Look, they're going to lose the crowds, but we're still going to see proper talent on show.
Yeah, great stuff. What you make of that, Johnny? Just final demand. I see 6-4 now to win the Brown Advisory. Very sharp prices.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was I know Paddy doesn't necessarily mean it like a nothing race is obviously a bit strong, but this was actually a good race. Like Wingman Now Is the Hour. These are good horses. He absolutely destroyed them. Like Now Is the Hour will come on for the run. He was 33. Wingman was a very good novice hurdler. There was one horse final demand, like when he came along last season, you're looking at the way he jumps a hurdle and his stride. You're like, imagine this horse over a fence. And for all of the hype that came from walking the park around the time of Duvan and Min, the three best walk in the park horses have still been Duvan Min and John Bon, who was Duvan's brother, and have been there from the get-go. So all of the hype around walking the park, the best horses have still been them until now when we're looking at, I know the way you're thinking, who's challenging that status to be one of the staying greats. And Final Demand just could be very, very good, like, because he's just such a beautiful mover, the way he jumped a fence yesterday. It's hard to know how much more he had in the locker, but definitely plenty. And it was a spectacular performance. Some of the others, like we need Terence O'Brien and John Chinnick and lads like that winning the Troytown. Brilliant report from Dave Jennings, the race post, as well, about how much it meant to the two of them. And I think these races are, I was lucky to have a leg of a horse who ran the Troytown back in the day, and there was a real sense of history around it. There was a real buzz around it, and like these are two of the good guys, two of the genuinely good guys. And you mentioned Calypso's Chance. I actually thought, Vinny, that nearly the performance of the day in some respects, I thought Barbsden was exceptional in the 3-year-old hurdle, because I'd seen him a couple of times. I'd seen him in the flesh on the flat for John Murphy, and didn't necessarily think, this horse is going to become a hurdler now very soon, because his flat form hadn't plateaued. There could have been more there. And for him to translate from the flat kind of training that he had to being prepared to run in a bottomless ground maiden hurdle in November over 2 miles at Navan, which would really test you. He settled so well. He did so much right in the race. First run, for Gordon Elliott, I thought it was an exceptional performance in the 3-year-old hurdle.
Very good, yeah. One other thing I just want to touch on from last week's racing, just for you, Johnny, particularly being from a punting side of things, is if you were there last Wednesday morning, Dundalk was on, you were going through some of the races thinking of having a bet, and you picked a horse out in the last race and you thought, fancy this, looks a fair price, or whatever it may be, and you were looking at the ones you didn't think had a chance against you, including the top horse, which is the top weight, which is trained by Sean Davis. Next thing is the Sean Davis horse is taken out because he's coughing. The first reserve gets in at Charles Burns', which Sean Davis used to train. Sean Davis picks up the ride on the horse. And then it gets gambled from 9-2 to 6-4 and wins a neck. And the rider gets done for the whip for 2 separate offences on the thing as well, picked up a 4-day suspension. You'd be hopping mad if you back something in that race in the morning. You see that going on, would you? Now, I'm sure there's nothing untoward with it, but it just has a look at something that, from a punting point of view and from just the general thing is saying Irish racing, come watch Irish racing, come have a bet in it, and then you see that sort of thing go on again. It's a little bit annoying. Would you agree?
It's an incredible set of circumstances. To be honest, I don't really bet in the morning now. I don't know what bookmakers' general rules are regarding reserves, but if you get a horse trained by Charles Burns, who's 6-4 favourite, added into a race when you're having your bet in the morning, and you're told that, by the way, if you back this horse at tens, just to let you know, there's going to be a gamble on Charles Burns 6-4 favourite in the race. Do you still want to have the bet? I don't think you would, to be fair. This is an instance where really bookmakers should factor in ignorance of the reserve, because I think there was a chance obviously he was going to get in. extraordinary set of circumstances that's the trainer of another horse ends up riding him. Like that is, I actually can't remember this ever happening before, and maybe it has. And Sean is a promising young trainer. Like it took him a while to get going, but you can see in recent months that he's going to train plenty of winners. And he's a shrewd enough operator, very charismatic character. Like, but this was, I mean, it was just an extraordinary set of circumstances, but it really brought through this is the worst situation ever, Vinny, if you want to back a horse and you're told, by the way, if the reserve gets in, you'll have to pay that premium as well because that horse is a runner.
Yeah, I feel that as well. I think there should be something in the sport. They've rules about all sorts of things. There should be an automatic little inquiry into that to at least tell the public who did their dough back in something else in the day, saying, look, we're very sorry here, but this is what happened, this is how it happened and why it happened, and there's nothing untoward and we move on, or whatever we do. But it leaves a little bit of a bad taste in the mouth for someone who had a bet that morning, I would have thought. Anyway, we'll move on to other little things betting wise. A horse to follow from last week. Paddy, what took your eye most of all?
I'm going to go with Calypso's chance, Finn. I think he is going to go on to bigger and better things. As I said, a horse breaking its maiden in a Navan graded race takes a fair bit of doing, and he's going to improve a lot. And 2.5, 3 miles, he could be a horse there. We could be latching onto for Cheltenham.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, let's hope he stays straight all season, because he did have a bit of a wobble towards the end of last season. I thought he definitely didn't perform at Cheltenham anyway when he was backed off the boards that day. I'll go for one here. Going to go for a filly, a 3-year-old filly owned by JP, trained by Gavin Cromwell, called In My Teens. It ran in Punchestown last Thursday. Ridden cold, out the back, cruised into contention, made a slight mistake at the last, finished fourth in the end. I think it'll definitely win again soon. It was very weak in the betting for that race, drifted from 4 to 5 out to 2 to 1, didn't appear to be particularly fancied. It was coming off the flat, first run over hurdles. It was rated 95 on the flat, or it has a rating of 95 on the flat. I think it'll definitely win hurdle races, so one to watch out for In My Teens. What about you, Johnny?
You sure it was the right horse, Vin?
Well, there you are. That's the question, isn't it? Yeah, owned by JP. You never know. It could have been anyone's horse was running in that one. Yeah, this is the problem, isn't it? That's what. Go back to that earlier thing, Paddy. What about you, Johnny? What caught your eye?
I think it was In My Teens. I'm going to put my neck on the line and say it was In My Teens. And this is the horse, Vinny, that is so much part of the Gavin Cromwell story, because the Damn Gers Girl was how he got the JP McManus relationship in the first place. So it's written in the stars that this horse is going to be good. I'm like you. I really like that run. I tipped up the favourite in the race, who seems to be well enough regarded, but she was the one to take out the race. And I was saying to a few of my mates, 66 to 1 for the Triumph. I wouldn't mind some of that. I'm just not sure she'd run in the race, but I have to say the performance of Barbizon yesterday, he's 16s freely for the Triumph. For a horse of his toe on the flat, he had plenty of toe on the flat on nice summer ground, to settle to do so much right on heavy ground at Navan in your first go over hurdles for a new trainer. I thought there's so much to take from it. And if he goes to the Triumph, this horse could be an absolute machine, I think.
Great stuff. We're picking out great ones this week, aren't we? So if you are gambling, do gamble responsibly. And thanks for watching the show. Thanks for all your contributions, guys. We'll be back again next week with something similar. I presume Emma will be back, probably sitting where I'm sitting next week, doing this presenting part of it. And anyway, make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.